listening to A Balanced Juggle, helping women find balance in managing it all while achieving their own personal goals. Hey, welcome back to A Balanced Juggle. My name is Lena, and you're listening to episode 10. Oh, let me tell you, we are back from our cruise. We are rejuvenated, well rested, had a fabulous time, just my husband and I, getting back into the daily grind. I gotta tell you, re-entry, as great as vacation is, unplugging, especially from like work and email and all that, makes re-entry all the harder. Am I the only one that feels that way? I mean, do you ever come back from vacation and you're like, ugh, why? I spent most of Monday and Tuesday just getting back to emails, getting reacclimated and readjusted into the swing of things. And when you're part of an operation that changes so drastically within a blink of an eye, there's lots to reacclimate oneself to, which leaves me to also say I didn't have much time left for anything else. My suitcase is literally sitting in my bedroom on the floor, open with things taken out of it, but I have not 100% unpacked, and I'm not ashamed to admit that. Ain't no shame in my game. But I do want to talk about my cruise and what I learned about myself. First and foremost, I totally showed my age. We were the oldest couple on the jet skiing excursion, and while I survived, I will tell you, I was sore for the following 3 days after. I mean, it was me and Motrin, like Winnie the Pooh on honey. I was so sore. It was so choppy. There was a lot of bumping and just, it was just really, it was a rough ride. And I do feel if you're driving a jet ski versus riding on the back with someone, it's a different experience. Either way, I'm glad I did it. I kept telling myself, you don't grow unless you're uncomfortable, Lena. Come on, be a big girl. And I did it. In the middle of it, I swore I was going to fall off. In hindsight, I'm glad I went through and I didn't ask to be taken back. I didn't want to be that person. So that was good. And we spent the rest of the day lounging on the beach, which was heaven. But I will tell you, while I made a promise to myself to be as active as possible on this cruise, meaning not to take the elevator, but to take the stairs, and we were on the 7th deck, so we did a lot of walking, and you do normally on the cruise, but we took the stairs more than we have in the past. And I'm talking up from the gangway, even when we tendered to the island. I'm happy to report back that on this cruise, I didn't gain any weight, which surprised me. I came home and the very next morning I weighed myself and I didn't gain any weight. I was amazed and I was so proud of myself. And I was even more motivated to keep going. Was it easy? It wasn't easy. And I'll tell you why. While I made a promise to be more active on the cruise, it was hard. It was hard to see everyone else enjoying free will and me having to maintain a certain level of restriction on what I could drink and what I can eat and what I can have when I want it. The first day I did great. I was gung-ho. I made my promise to myself. The second morning I was all right. And then I'm with my husband, who's really and truly not on a restricted diet or any restriction whatsoever. So I'm with him. He's, going here and there, having a good time experiencing it, and I'm not having a bad time, but I'm not able to experience and have all the things he was having in terms of, eating and drinking and doing various things. I started to develop resentment, if you will, and by dinner time, I was a total bitch. I was upset. I kept trying to tell myself, oh, well, this is the life I chose. It's a lifestyle change and yada, yada, yada. And he was there enjoying like chocolate souffle and ordering 2 or 3 desserts and eating whatever he wanted on the menu, main dish, whatever. And I'm just there, just watching him. And I was upset. I kind of trashed the evening, quite frankly. And honey, if you're listening to this, let me apologize because I wasn't a very nice person. And by the next morning, I had to really stop and catch myself because I was making our vacation miserable and it wasn't fair to him. And I started to ask myself, why am I feeling this way? I'm not upset that I'm on a diet. I'm not upset necessarily that I can't have what I want. I'm really not. And then I realized I'm upset because I'm not getting to share the experience with those around me. And I realized I'm more pissed off about not getting that experience, or I'm more pissed off about missing out on that experience or a fear of missing out on anything, FOMO, if you will, than I am of what I'm actually missing out on. And at first I was like, shit, that does not friggin' make sense. So I spent the morning talking about it with myself, by the way, and thinking it through. And I realized that's exactly what it is. We are set up to take advantage of the experiences that are in front of us. And if we don't, we automatically feel as though we're lacking. And that notion of lacking leads us to resentment, leads us to these snowball emotions and mindsets that it's just negative, and it adds a negative vibe to the environment we're in. It came to the point after the second night, I was like, well, you go do your thing. I'm just going to stay in here because I can't yada, 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 yada. And, that was one, so childish on my part. And I'm admitting it. I'm the most imperfect person in the world. I'll be the first one to admit that. And I really had to step back and think about all of this. After really and truly processing the thoughts the next morning in my head alone, I began to realize that it was just me not wanting to miss out on the experience. So I told myself, I'm not going to miss out on the experience, but I have to choose. Do I really want that experience of whatever it is in that moment? That's where the choice comes in. And I really want to talk about that today, because I think on a bigger picture throughout our lives, be it personally in our relationships or professionally at work, how much of what we do, how much of what we think, how much of what we feel, how much of anything for that matter is dictated on our FOMO, our fear of missing out. And I think it's a much bigger factor in our lives than we may think. That's one of my biggest takeaway from my cruise, was that realization. How much of what I eat, how much of what I do is based on what I'm exposed to, and how much I feel I need to experience based on what I'm exposed to in that moment. And for me, with me trying to change my lifestyle into a more healthy lifestyle, it's amazing how much of what I do sometimes revolve around food. All right, so first and foremost, we all know that FOMO is the fear of missing out. That is good as it is equally bad to a person. And I think it's a notion that's already embedded in our mindset, in our society. And I'm talking about any society, any corner of the world. I don't care which country you're from. There's some level of FOMO going on. And then there's some level of, in some capacity, it's being exploited in some ways. Let's talk about marketing. So many marketing strategies are based around exactly that, exploiting the consumer sense of FOMO, fear of missing out. Every time you're seeing an ad, every time you see something play across your phone screen or TV, it's all about how they meet your needs, how much you need that product, and how much your life will lack if you miss out. So exploiting our sense of FOMO is pretty much the gain of marketing, right? If a marketing strategy can 100% foolproof itself by targeting and achieving and gaining the consumer's buy-in by exploiting their fear of missing out, it's a done deal. They're a winner. So I realized this weekend that now that we've kind of like defined FOMO and how natural it is, it's a natural mindset for all of us. None of us wants to feel like we're missing out. I realized, as it pertains to my diet, how detrimental it could be to the environments that I'm in. I have to learn, because I chose this lifestyle to be healthier. One, I do have to always be in a state of restraint, and I should not feel bad about it if another person is enjoying their time in a way that they want to. Does that mean that I have to 100% do without? No, I could splurge and enjoy a little bit. I have to take responsibility and move on rather, but I cannot allow that sense of FOMO to allow me to develop a negative mindset. And that is exactly what I did this weekend. And I know I'm talking a lot about food and how it pertained to the cruise, because this all derived from that. It was such an eye-opener for me, and I'm so happy that I was able to catch it and create that level of awareness that really and truly prompted me, one, to do this podcast, and to facilitate a change in my life where I have to decide FOMO or no FOMO, right? We know for a fact marketing 100% directs and exploits FOMO, right? And that's how marketing works. That's how they push products or services out in a way that you need it. But how does it pertain to our personal life? How can we control the FOMO in our mind, where in those instances, it's only the appropriate ones that we're taking advantage of? And before we go into strategies that we can implement, be it in our personal life or professional, let's talk about how FOMO kind of harms us. We are in some way or another controlled by FOMO. I, for one, can tell you that I have a phone attachment. My phone is with me 7 days a week, and it's within arm's reach 24 hours a day, right? You know, that in some ways is unhealthy, and I've read this before, right? And I always attribute it, listen, it's because of my job. The operation that I'm a part of is 24/7. I have to be connected. I refuse not to be connected because the time that I'm not, watch, poop will hit the fan, and then That's my luck, right? I also realized that is a sense of FOMO. It's a fear of missing out. When my phone dings, it's almost like automatic. And it's in the last week I started I've always known it, but in the last week I really start to hone in on this behavior where it dings and I automatically pick it up. It's like taking a breath. And it's something that I have to be more cautious about and ask myself, what am I missing out if I don't check that right away, right? And what do we think we're missing out? Well, whatever is coming in. We all feel that we're also missing out in a moment. And it's that fear that is an inhibitant to ourselves. That's another way that FOMO can harm us. It's that fear of missing out in that moment. We are missing that moment if we don't go. But if we do go, is that really in line with what we should be doing or our goals? Does that action put us forward or put us back or just take us nowhere? I've heard some people tell me, oh, well, I'm taking a sidestep. It's movement anyhow. Well, yeah, I guess in some ways sidesteps are movement, but it's not really forward. So we've really got to pick and choose on what we want to move on. And I know everyday decisions, FOMO, going this, there, and that, and the other, doing something on the spur is very different than those lifetime goals that I may be insinuating. But overall, it's those small distractions in our life that we choose to go forward with because of the fear of missing out that kind of takes us away from the big picture sometimes. So it's good to always keep that in the back of your mind. Number 3 on this list is sometimes FOMO can control your life. And I know that sounds like super extreme, but it's really not. I'll use my phone as an example. I can't be without it. I can't be without my phone or my what is this thing called? The Apple Pro thingy-majiggy, this thing, I always have one of the two with me. I can't do without it. And in some ways, yes, it does control my life. I accept that. How do I stop that? It's me starting to become aware of that behavior and catching it. Once I do that, I can implement a change. And I'm starting to. So number 4 is it spreads negativity. Well, the second night of my cruise after the big blowout with my husband, yeah, definitely. Negativity. I was just not my normal optimistic self. I was bitter. I was negative. I was angry. And my anger and resentfulness was not even because of him, which was really and truly unfair. It also validates your life. So what does that mean? This pretty much just means, just because you do something, you don't need to validate it by putting it on Facebook. It still happened whether or not you put it on social media. I was watching Alaskan Bush People. It's a really good show. It's entertaining. It came to the point when they had the camera crew and production crew around them all the time. It got to the point where they didn't believe something happened unless they captured it on film. And we shouldn't allow ourselves or our lives to become that way as it pertains to social media. Just because it's not on social media doesn't mean it didn't happen, or it doesn't mean that it's not validated. So it's good for us to break away from that. Number 6 is it lowers self-esteem. Yes, it does. I can't tell you how much so. I felt like crap on the second night of the cruise. I felt shitty. I was worthless. I knew I was wrong on both ends of it, and I just didn't know what to do. That's just another way to remove that factor. Just control your FOMO and not be owned by it, and it'll help you not have lower self-esteem because it'll remove that aspect of negativity. Negativity is the creator of low self-esteem, right? FOMO makes you risky. And what does that mean? Well, remember we were going back to missing the moment. If you're so caught up on not missing the moment, you'll make sporadic decisions that may not be in line with pretty much what you should be doing. And I'm not saying that you should live your life by the book. I sure as hell don't. But I mean, being sporadic to some degree is good, but to the point where you are replacing or going off your path to the extent where it's getting in the way of your overall production, then it becomes a problem, right? So that's where it becomes risky. You're supposed to be doing A, you get a call from B, and if you don't go now, you're missing out on that time, so you decide to go and A goes to the back burner and eventually falls off. That's your loss. That's no one else's loss but yours. And it's something I'm actually trying to, I don't want to say teach, but kind of talk to my son about, because he's at that age now where his friends call and he wants to go hang out or he wants to go jam or whatever he wants to do. And I'm like, listen, you should be home, getting ready for your SATs, or let's do this, then the other. And he's implemented, it's very natural, in my opinion, fear of missing out. He wants to go with his friends. He doesn't want to miss out on that moment. And it becomes a habit. So when you start doing that and you start that sporadic behavior, that sporadic behavior will eventually become a habit where the bigger priorities are then replaced by these smaller wants that you engage in because you fear that you'll miss out on something. With all that said, we can agree that FOMO is extremely friggin' exhausting, right? I mean, it just messes you up mentally. It could screw you up physically. it's draining. So who the hell has time to do anything else if you're all FOMO'd out, right? And also, let's say you're not aware of your FOMO and you're exhibiting that sporadic behavior. You're not getting anything done. And none of your priorities are in place because you have a fear of missing out on everything you want to do, or everything your friends call you to do, or everything that's in front of your face that you want to eat or someone else is eating. It's something that's really exhausting. You don't want to miss out. No one wants to miss out in life, but we have to choose what we do and what we allow FOMO to have control over. So back to the B word, it's all about balance. And it's all about